Welcome to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com as part of your Wrestling Wednesday card. I'm your host, Michael Davis. It's a big week for Tobacco Road Sports Radio and Drop the Mic this week. After attending Sting's final match at AEW Revolution, I'll be joined later on by Markus Hernandez from Four Sides of the Ring podcast and my good friend Jason Sitek share our experience attending Revolution this past Sunday in the Greensboro Coliseum. We'll also be sharing some fan pictures and footage from the show. So super excited about that. But right now, I am so blessed and honored to have somebody I've looked up to for a while. He's a former WCW superstar, but honestly, he's one of my idols. If you look at his name, you could probably get the reference right there.
Yeah.
But I am welcoming Lodi, former WCW superstar, runs the Team Fearless Training Academy, also runs a weight room revival we'll talk about here on the show. But Lodi, what's going on? How are you doing?
Hey, man, I am doing great. Blessed and highly favored, and I appreciate you having me on today. Thank you, sir.
Of course. And I was just reminiscing with my dad because I mentioned, you had agreed to come on the show and everything. Yeah. And so me and him were super excited about that. And he's like, do you remember as a little kid, Lenny and Lodi on these independent shows? And you'd run up to Lodi and thought he was the coolest guy with his signs. I'm like, yeah, that hasn't changed.
Before we go any further, I hadn't had a chance to say anything about it. How about your Facebook post today? The flashback pictures.
Oh my goodness. Yeah.
How random was that for today? I just saw that earlier, and I was in such a hurry I didn't get a chance to like it or say anything. I want to tell you in person, how cool was that?
That was awesome. And so, anyone watching right now, Facebook will pop up these memories and stuff. And Lodi had just come back from, I believe, your neck surgery. I think that was like your third neck surgery.
2017. Yeah. Yes, sir.
And he had a match in Kinston, North Carolina, and my dad still won't let me live it down. That he's like, we drove how far? I'm like, but it's Lodi. And he's like, I know.
I shouldn't let you live it down either. I couldn't believe you drove that far for that match. You're like, it's your first match back. I want to be here. Oh, thank you.
Well, of course, I'll probably post that somewhere online, and people can see how wacky my hair was. I don't know what I was doing with my hair back in the day.
You were a little young back then.
Wish I could be young now, but yeah. Thank you for coming on, and
yes,
especially anyone in the Carolinas know who you are. You're still wrestling independently in the Carolinas, some in Texas with the Christian Wrestling Federation.
Right.
Were you a born and raised in North Carolina kind of guy?
I was. I grew up in Asheboro, North Carolina. I'm in Charlotte now. So about an hour and a half east of here, right about in the center of the state is where home was for me, where I grew up and where I was raised, and then went down to Greenville, East Carolina University, and then moved on to Atlanta to work with WCW. And I bounced around a little bit after that.
Wow. And you mentioned WCW. I'd be remiss without mentioning Sting wrestled his final match this past weekend in the Greensboro Coliseum. I don't know if you had any thoughts about Sting's final match. Did you get to watch it? Did you get to see his run in the last few years?
Yes, I did. And, working with Sting at WCW and, as a kid, when I first started wrestling, I painted my face. My first wrestling character was Raising Cain. And there were a multitude of guys who were behind inspiring that. Road Warriors, Ultimate Warrior, Sting. But you can't leave any of those out because those are the guys I grew up watching, the Greensboro Coliseum, take the Warrior out of that. But those guys in Mid-Atlantic and NWA, with Sting around and the Road Warriors. And so the fact that he wrestled until the age of 64 and did it at the level he was able to continue to do it is just mind-boggling. I think some of the coolest things and stories I have to share of my time with knowing Sting and working with him at WCW was one quick story. We didn't necessarily travel in the same circles. His friends were his friends, my friends were my friends. We didn't necessarily intermingle a lot, but I would see him, hey, Stinger, hey, Lodi. One day, randomly, I was walking through an arena, and my mom was dealing with colon cancer. And I kind of kept it to myself. It wasn't something I'd shared with even my close friends at work. My friends back home knew. But I was walking through the arena and ran into Sting backstage. Hey, Stinger. I said, hey, Lodi, can I talk to you for a second? I said, sure, Stinger, what's up? He goes, how's your mom doing? And he knew she had cancer and was dealing with some issues, was in the hospital. He said, I'm praying for her. I hope she gets better soon. And that was the most random thing to me, and I never had a chance to ask him again how he knew. But it was really cool. And several years later, I think in 2005 or so, he and I were able to catch up. We had done an autograph signing at a Comic-Con or a wrestling convention up in New Jersey. And we passed each other in the TSA line. And we had different flights. He was going back to Texas, I think, and I was coming back to North Carolina. But he, went on through, and I had like a 4-hour layover waiting on my plane. So I went to a gate where there was no plane. I was just going to sit and read for a few minutes. And I'm sitting there with my head down and my feet out. And I felt somebody kick my shoe. And I looked up, and Stinger was like, hey, what are you doing, kid? I'm like, man, I got a 4-hour layover before my flight takes off. He goes, I got a 3-hour layover. You mind if I sit with you? And he sat down and talked with me for probably 2 hours maybe. And 90% of our conversation was about our faith. So that was a really cool conversation and really fun. It was right after he had left WWE, I think. So the numbers, the dates, I'm not exactly sure when that was in hindsight. Go back and look through some pictures and figure it out. But he had just recovered from the neck issues, but he'd been let go by WWE. So, but that was a really cool conversation we had. And so to bring it around to his saying goodbye and leaving, and the way he went out, and the fact that he did it for so many years, my hat's off to him. He's truly an icon and someone I looked up to before I got into wrestling. Obviously, as a man, still look up to this day. And so, thank you for all the memories, Stinger. It was great.
Man, that's awesome. A funny side note is like his faith is where I was like, oh, this is cool, and did some research. And if online is right, he became a Christian August of '98, and I was born in August of '98. So I was like, oh wow,
wow, way to make me feel old, Michael. I didn't know what year you were born. That's great. Ow.
Oops.
You're good. You're good.
Well, I did celebrate my half birthday last week, so if anyone listening wants to send in a half birthday present,
exactly.
It would be much appreciated. But yeah, that was an incredible time. I'll have Markus from Four Sides of the Ring and Jason Sitek on a little later on, but I want to talk to you because you had some interesting tag team partners throughout your career. And I know with WCW, you're most notable for the Flock with Raven.
Right. Yeah.
So what was it like working with Raven? How did you start getting involved with the Flock? Whose idea was it? And how did it all come about?
The easiest way to tell that story is Raven and I had a relationship before I started at WCW. He had hired me as his personal trainer. I was down at the power plant training at WCW at their school after being on the independents for about a year and a half. And a friend of mine and I ran into him in a bar one night in Atlanta, and I didn't want to go talk to him because I didn't know him. My friend did, and he went over, speed the story up, and came back and said, hey, Raven wants to talk to you. And I'm like, why does Raven want to? He doesn't know me. And he said, no, I explained to him you're a personal trainer, and he's looking for a personal trainer. He's moved here from Philadelphia. And so that night that I met him, Raven hired me as his personal trainer. And after about 2 weeks of being his personal trainer, he actually hired me as full-time personal assistant. So the funny thing is the act that we portrayed on TV of me being the lackey and kind of doing his bidding was kind of what we did in real life as well. So the two kind of played off each other. And our relationship, I just did a really good podcast, an interview a couple of weeks ago with Ben Veal out of the UK. And I said, and I've said this many, many times, and I'll say it again, is I can never thank Raven for all the things he did for me in my career. He helped me so much and was so selfless with teaching me so much of the knowledge he has. And for people that don't know how intelligent Raven is, he sees the wrestling industry like most adults see the game of tic-tac-toe. It's just easy for him. And it's great. He's good at explaining why this works and why that works and why this will get a reaction from the fans, even if it seems something so outlandish or at first thought like, oh, that's exactly opposite. He will explain to you why you should do it, tell you to go out and do it. And every time I followed what he told me to do, whatever I did went out and got over. So he is a true genius in the wrestling world. And I, again, love him to death. And there's nothing I could ever do to repay him for all the knowledge and all the stuff he did for me.
And I can't imagine what he's doing now because he's associated with Major League Wrestling, MLW. Like, that is such a great mind to have in that locker room with those young guys. I'm super excited to see what he does.
Yeah, he is. He has great ideas. It was phenomenal at coming up with ideas. And I learned all this later on because obviously I did not work there. But he was great at helping the ECW locker room. A lot of the guys with their gimmicks and a lot of guys with their characters and development, things like that. And that is what he needs to be doing in life. You know, some people were made to be a fireman or a policeman or a baseball player. And Raven was made to work in wrestling. That's what he does best.
That's awesome, especially knowing that it's been a good fit for him for as long as he's been in the business. And then after the Flock, you transitioned, you know, went to the West Hollywood Blondes with Lenny. Back when I was, you know, small and going to these independent shows, it was Lenny and Lodi on the independent scene. And that was my first introduction to you guys. I hadn't even gotten the ability to watch WCW back then. And now going back and watching some of the stuff that you and Lane did as the West Hollywood Blondes, like, it seems totally different from like television versus you guys teaming up in the independent scene. And then also just knowing you personally, the type of guy you are, what's that dynamic like? Were you okay with doing the West Hollywood Blondes? Was it something you pictured doing? And then how did you change it on the independent scene?
You know, the whole idea was ours. Lenny approached me with this whole idea. One day we were at Saturday night TV taping back in when I was at WCW. We used to tape our Saturday night show. It was a 2-hour show. We would tape that every other Tuesday. So every other Tuesday we would do 20 matches. 10 would be for one Saturday night. 10 would be for the next Saturday. So we taped that Saturday night show every other week. And the Flock had been disbanded. And I knew Lenny. He was what we called, and again, this is not a knock on him. This was just his position with the company. He was more or less what we call an enhancement guy. He was under contract, but they never really gave him an angle or a storyline. He basically came in to put the other guys over, whether it be on Nitro, Thunder, or Saturday night. And he came up to me right after the Flock whole deal was over. And I wasn't doing Nitro as often. I wasn't doing Thunder as much. But I was doing the Saturday night tapings, and Terry Taylor was working with me. And we did a whole thing for a while where I had what we call a loaded glove. I wore my glove, and, you know, towards the end of the match, I'd pull a gimmick out of my shorts and stick it in the glove and knock the guy out when the ref wasn't looking. And that was something we were doing on the Saturday night show. We never got to use it a whole lot on Nitro or Thunder. And Lenny came up to me and approached me with an idea. He said, hey, what are they doing with you, you know? And right now, I told him outside of that, there wasn't a whole lot going on. And so he said, hey, what do you think about you and I forming a tag team? And I will never forget looking at him and like, what are we going to be, Lodi and Lenny the losers? I mean, what should we do? You know? And he goes, no, I got an idea. You know, he said, have you ever watched Saturday Night Live? And he said, what we could do is, I think, we could do something kind of like a ripoff of the Ambiguously Gay Duo, where you and I are walking down the beach and we're both eating ice cream. This was Lenny's first idea for a vignette. And, you know, we're smiling, the sun's out, it's a great day at the beach, and I drop my ice cream cone, and you're like, here, Lenny, have some of mine. And he said, you know, that basically tongue-in-cheek stuff like that. And I said, I don't know. And I was friends with Kevin Nash. And he said, hey, I know you're Kevin's boy. You could probably pitch it to him and he might use it. And I'm like, Lenny. So I at this point, like, I didn't know Lenny very well. I knew him by name, but we weren't boys. We didn't hang out. We just weren't very close. And I was kind of wanting to push him to the side, get this conversation over. It wasn't going anywhere I wanted to do. And I said, tell you what, Lenny, if you'll type this whole idea up and bring it back to me next time we have TV, I'll take it to Kevin Nash. Knowing good and well, Lenny's not going to go home and type up a 3-page or 4-page paper on this idea for a gimmick, right? And so 2 weeks go by. I totally just had forgotten it even happened. And we're at TV. Lenny walks up. He's like, hey, Lodi, guess what? I got the idea for you typed up. And he hands me 3 pages of typed paper. And I look at it. And Michael, the first line at the top says, this is not a gay gimmick, period. I'm like, Lenny, what? I can't take this to Kevin. He goes, no, it's not a gay gimmick. I'm like, okay, I get that, but that's not. He said, bro,
that's not a good disclaimer.
It's just not a good start. It's just you put that in there somewhere, but that's not your opening firing salvo. You don't start there. So at this point, I'm back to where I was 2 weeks before. I'm just ready to get Lenny out of my hair. I'm like, come on, let's go talk to Kevin. Knock on Kevin's door. It's like, Kevin, hey, Lodi, what's up? Hey, I got an idea for you. He's like, what have you got? I say, Lenny typed up this idea for a gimmick for us. And I hand it to him across the desk. And he looks at it out loud. He looks at me and goes, this is not a gay gimmick. What are you guys doing? He throws it up in the air and goes, we can't do this here. Get out of my office. And I'm like, see, Lenny, I told you, Kevin. Sorry we bugged you. We're out. Boom. We walk out down the hall, and Lenny's like, bro, I'm like, I told you I'd give it to him. You saw his reaction. Thanks. But, I just don't think this is anything. So probably a month and a half go by, nothing. And so the whole funny thing about this is, Michael, I was living in West Hollywood at the time. I'd moved to California. And
West Hollywood Blondes. Makes sense.
Well, see, there you go. It's funny because I just had this conversation with one of the heat seekers or somebody the other night at a show. They said, Lodi, have you ever been to West Hollywood? I'm like, bro, I used to live there. They were so shocked. They had no idea. I'm like, I lived there for almost a year. And so anyway, I get a phone call from Ross Foreman, who is now the promo guy at TNA. He's been at TNA forever. He worked at WCW. He and Kevin were good friends. I get a phone call from him. I'm having lunch with my manager out in LA. And he says, hey, you're going to get a phone call in about 5 to 10 minutes. Pretend you don't know anything about it. Kevin's going to call you and ask you to come Nitro. I got to go. Click. And that's all it said. All right. 5, 10 minutes go by. Phone rings. Hello. Hey, Lodi, it's Kevin. Hey, Kevin, what's up? What are you doing Monday night? I'm like, I don't know. What are you doing Monday night? He goes, well, I'll be at Nitro. Would you like to come? I'm like, well, depends on what I'm doing. I said, I think we're going to look into that angle you pitched. And I said, all right, send me my ticket. I'll see you on Monday. And the rest is kind of history.
Wow.
Yeah. So we went Monday. That's how the whole thing started. And again, the crazy thing about all of that is if you go back and listen and watch all the TV shows and see all the vignettes, we never used the word gay. We never used the word homosexual. Everything was tongue-in-cheek and kind of silly, ha-ha, funny. But, we ended up getting kicked off TV by GLAAD, by Gay and Lesbians Against Defamation. That's what got us kicked off TV. It was in the Washington Post. It was the New York paper. It was in the USA Today. But they pitched 5 reasons why they wanted us off TV. And if you and I haven't had this conversation before, all 5 reasons they gave for wanting Lenny and I off TV were absolutely false. Wow. They said I was announced in every arena as Lenny's homosexual partner. Our announcement
never said
that. Never said that. They said Lenny and I never won a match. Lenny was a cruiserweight champion. They took the belt off of him in a phantom loss to Psychosis. He never lost that belt. Like, if we never won a match, A, how do we get a belt? And B, how do we keep it? That doesn't even make sense. They also said they would be fine with our characters portraying the characters they were had we been on TV before that angle. Well, I've been on TV for 2.5 years. Lenny had been on longer than that. Neither one of us were new to TV. And they also said that what was the other thing? Oh, they had complained with WCW one time before about one of our vignettes where we walked out of an office, and when the camera panned back to the door, it said closet. And so what they said was they contacted WCW, and just like this, and wrestling fans know this, just like a soap opera, we're a weekly episodic TV show. We don't keep re-airing the same show over and over again. They complained when we did that to WCW about that angle and that vignette. And they said WCW told them we won't air it anymore. It's over. And they said WCW continued to air that show over and over and over again. Never happened.
There's no reruns in wrestling. Like, you'd have to tape it. Now we get so on that DVR or whatever.
All of the reasons they put into the petition to AOL Time Warner to get us taken off TV, all 5 of them were straight fallacies. But instead of standing up for us, AOL Time Warner was like, we'll take them off TV to make Glad happy. So that's why we sat at home for almost 8 months to a year.
Dang.
Yeah.
But you still have done really good stuff on the independent scene. You have obviously your Team Fearless Train Academy shirt on, and right. I'm sure that's because Team Fearless, you and Scotty Matthews.
Yes.
How did that tag team start? Because I've loved going to see you guys, meet you guys several times. You two are 2 of the nicest people I've ever interacted with. And I'm not just saying that because you're there. Me, I've had several conversations.
Right. We've talked about this before. Scotty is as close to me as my blood brother. I love Scotty to death, and I know Scotty loves me. And we have probably spent more time in cars and more car rides and trips and matches together than I have with any other partner. I originally met Scotty when he first broke into the business back in 2000, and I helped train him a little bit before I passed him off to C.W. Anderson. And he and I had gotten together in 2004 after my second neck surgery and formed a tag team called the Hybrids. And we wrestled together for a couple of years and did multiple shots with WWE, hoping to get a job. And at the time, Johnny Ace was in charge, and Johnny was just a big fan of tall, big guys. And I'm not tall, and Scotty's not tall either. So we were really short at the time for what WWE was hiring. And I know that sounds weird now because guys are so short, they're like soccer players. But that's totally changed in the business, It's the weirdest thing. At WCW, I always laughed that, truly, I was one of the shorter guys there at the time when I was on TV. And people would see me in public, and they're like, dude, you're so much bigger in person. I'm like, I'm 5'10", but you see me on TV, and the guys that I wrestle with are 6'5" and taller. So, yeah, I look small on TV because, and now I walk into an independent locker room, and I feel like a giant because these guys are so short. It's just the business has changed, and I don't ever want to come across as that bitter old veteran who's complaining about, they've ruined our business. It's different, and I'm good with that. It's just it's funny how much different it is. But when you go back to Scotty, after we worked together for a couple of years, we went our separate ways, and we reconnected back in about 2010 or 2011. And I had started turning my life around and gotten back into church and had gotten clean and sober. And Scotty had found Jesus for the first time in his life. And that's where we got together and decided to form a tag team called Team Fearless. And our whole tagline is, we're fearless to stand on any street corner, any locker room, or any wrestling venue and talk about our love for Jesus Christ. And that's what we do with our wrestling. We use that as our ministry. Scotty is great he does, as you know, because you've got a couple of them, I know, all of our Team Fearless shirts. And, so Scotty always makes sure there's a Bible verse on the Team Fearless shirts. And as a wrestler, when I was on TV and a heel, I always came out with a sign, we hate El Paso, or, this town smells. And now I come out with Bible verses on the sign. So we've kind of went a 180 with our characters and turned it around and to turn it into our ministry. And I think God has blessed us at our age to still be able to do what we do. Scotty and I have both been through some pretty horrific accidents and health issues and scares over the past 5 or 6 years. And the fact that we're both still wrestling at the level we are, it's pretty cool.
Well, it is really cool because, like, you know, just as a fan and being able to, like, see and watch you, you know, I don't know, last 20 years of my life, give or take, getting to meet you and, you know, go to that Kinston show, but also go to that York show a couple weeks ago for Bubba Amick Promotions. That was 8 months to the day after your heart attack, and to see you in the ring, it was special. I don't know how that felt for you coming back, because I know you've had your struggles, and yeah, how special was that? And you also wrestled C.W. Anderson.
I did, who was my original trainer. So, you know, that night was really special for me in a lot of ways. I came back in December, which was 6 months from my surgery, and wrestled 5 times in 48 hours down in Texas for the Christian Wrestling Federation. So that was a whole different thing. And, you know, Scotty and I were there together. And the last night we had 2 matches together, which was good. But the show in Clover, to come back 8 months to the day of my heart attack and wrestle for the same promoter. And Bubba's a personal training client of mine, but also a friend. And for me to have that incident happen on his very first show he ever promoted last June, I know that bothered him some. And then, you know, he was kind enough to put me on his show in February, 8 months to the day it happened. And, of course, we were wrestling in Bob Keller's ring, the exact same ring that I had my heart attack in 8 months earlier, against one of my lifelong best friends. It was pretty special. And I know sometimes when I talk to people about their faith, and they tend to say, you know, God's not really in the business of miracles anymore or doing anything big. And I just have to laugh, because I don't know a whole lot of guys that have a quintuple bypass who come back and wrestle in 6 months or 7 months and 8 months like I did. And I know for a fact I could easily try to take credit for that and say, oh, it's my hard work and whatever. But the fact is, without Jesus Christ, my Lord and Savior, giving me the ability to do that and giving me the surgeon he gave me to repair my heart that was in really bad shape, I wouldn't be here today.
And I think that's a huge testament to God's power and God's work. And not only that, but like what he still has you here for. Like, you're still here for a reason. You're pouring into the lives of all the students at your training academy. I've noticed on Facebook, like Dax Harwood has showed up to help. Arn Anderson's showed up to help. I'm going to miss several others. Caprice Coleman, I believe. Like, there's so many guys who has helped you. But I'll be honest, your training academy, I haven't had a wrestling class yet. I haven't had any of those experiences, but you do something every couple months. It's called the Weight Room Revival. You started that in November, did that in January, and you're going to have one a week from tomorrow, Thursday, March 14th, at your little gym. Lodi's going to be there. I'm going to be there.
Yes, sir.
Peter Bilt on the independent scene, and Pastor Andy McDaniel, who also did some independent work back in the day, is all going to be there. It's free to everybody. But I know your time is precious. But I do wanted to ask, like, what led you to starting this Weight Room Revival? How did it come together? Because it has changed my life. And I could take up the whole hour just talking about that. It's changed my dad's life, changed our relationship as we drive back home afterwards each time. I know I told you this off the air, but thank you.
Yes, sir.
But what led to the Weight Room Revival?
You know, I've talked about this to people who've been here, and I had an idea that Nikita and I did a TV show a while back with a pastor, And we basically spent an hour discussing how so many guys today, I feel, are led by the world and the world standards for what a man should be or how a man judges your success, and not necessarily what the Bible or what God calls us to be. And I feel like that is something that if you don't know that, or you haven't studied the Bible, or you don't realize that, once you hear it and you're a follower of Christ, it's hard to go back and not do that. And so I found that the male role that is laid out in the Bible, as far as being like the head of the family and the one who leads prayer. And again, I preface all this because I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. There is absolutely nothing wrong with a Proverbs 31 woman who loves the Lord. And it's one of the greatest things you can ever find, I promise you. And I'm not taking away from any female's desire to pray or do those things, but it's very clear in the Bible that there are certain roles that the father or the male in the household is supposed to be the leader in. And so I have found, as Nikita and I have talked about this, and a lot of our speaking engagements, as we travel around, like afterwards, if you're signing autographs or signing a book or talking with some families, so many times, Michael, a lady will walk up with her kids and her husband, and she's like, you know, I heard you were going to be here. I made sure the family came. And it's, again, that's a great thing that there's that kind of godly woman in the family, but a lot of that role falls on the shoulders of the man. And I think certain world standards today emasculate a man and ask him not to be that. And so the whole thing was an idea. It was like, you know, I wonder if we could bring some men together. I've got a gym here in Charlotte, obviously, or Matthews. And, you know, the rent's paid. We have a building. We can fit 50, 55 chairs in here. If we had some men get together and just had some food and some fellowship and just got together and maybe, you know, created some deeper bonds and relationships and discussed these kind of things. And for the guys that don't necessarily know what a godly man looks like, to bring in guys like Nikita and like Gunnar and like Pastor Andy, who have lived this and realize that this is the way we're supposed to do it, and share that with other men and see if we can't enhance their lives and their ability to be more holy and be a more biblical, godly man. And I had the idea, and as you've heard me talk about, I kind of started backpedaling on it and wrestling with God. Like, yeah, I don't think this, I don't know that I'm qualified to do this. I don't know if this is what you really want me to be doing. And I spoke with my girlfriend Tanya about it, and as soon as I brought it up, she's like, why haven't you done this already? And as I'm sitting here telling you about needing to be the godly man and leader, she was the one who said, you need to do this right now. That is a phenomenal idea. Quit even fighting with God and just go do it. And I think the outpouring of the numbers of not only the ones that show up here, and this is where I sold God short, and I don't know that you know I've had this discussion, but we've put it up on Facebook Live on my Facebook page for those that can't be here that night. In my mind, and sometimes I'm guilty of this, trying to do things on my own and forgetting how big and how great God is. And so while I was so stuck on making sure these 50 men who showed up enjoyed their meal, enjoyed their time together, and got to hear some, you know, good preaching, good testimony, whatever, I didn't fathom we would have 3,000 people watch this online. And both events so far have gotten over 3,000 views. And so for the commercials that K-Mac has put together from the events that we've shown, you know, those have gotten, you know, 1,000 or so views a piece. So we've reached a lot of people without a whole lot of output of capital. You know, when you break it down, like how many people we've been able to reach for the money invested, it's pennies. And I mean, it's wow. Really, and so I think it's beholden to us as Christian men to make sure we make the best use of God's money and the gifts he's given us, and not, you know, just spend frivolously or whatever. But when you break it down per person for the money we spent, it's been a great investment, and it's something that we've committed to do for the rest of the year. So March 14th, a week from Thursday this week. Again, we'll have it here, and everybody's welcome. It's free. It is an event for men. I had a guy last night say, "Oh, I've got a pastor in Rock Hill. He and his wife want to come." I'm like, "That's great, but it's for men only." It's one of those things. And somebody asked me, would I ever consider doing a co-ed event where men could bring their wives or men could bring their children or whatever it may be. And that's something we may do somewhere down the line. But for right now, I think we have a real untapped audience out there of men who need to hear good, sound, biblically teaching.
Yeah, and I think just from attending there, I've gotten that. And there's something special about guys coming together for a common goal, a common purpose, and realizing like, hey, this person's right on the same path as me, trying to walk that same path. It's really powerful. The Weight Room Revival again, Thursday, March 14th at Lodi's Gym at Your Flex Appeal in Matthews. I'll be making the drive there as well as my dad. And if you're like living in another state and you can't make it, just find him on social medias, Facebook. We'll
have it on
do another
Facebook.
live stream.
And the other thing too, real quick, is moving forward, just so some of you guys, I know maybe next Thursday may be a quick turnaround for you guys. You've got something going on, but what we're planning for the rest of the year, we're going to do it every other month. So the next one will be in May, and then we'll skip June and go July. And we're always going to do the second Thursday. So we'll do the second Thursday of every other month through the rest of the year. And so if you want to look forward to do maybe the one in May or the one in July, those will be the next two we do. And we've also been approached by a couple of other people about bringing the Weight Room Revival on the road. So that may be something that, we got a couple of calls from churches who are thinking over this fall for Scotty and I to come in and do the Weight Room Revival there. So that may be a whole nother avenue that, again, that wasn't something I ever thought would come out of this. But again, that's me limiting myself and forgetting how big a God we serve. And when you turn over to him and let him have it, what he can do with it.
And the same God who helped you with your third neck surgery, the same God who helped you with your heart surgery.
Yes, sir.
You're still living, still breathing. Lodi, thank you so much for hopping on Drop the Mic today. It was a pleasure. Again, for those men watching, join myself, Lodi, and other men at the Weight Room Revival on March 14th, a Thursday night in Matthews, North Carolina. Before we get Markus Hernandez and Jason Sitek in here, you guys can subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. You can find more Drop the Mic episodes. Find us more on social media as well. We got Facebook, Instagram. I finally got a TikTok. I told myself I'd never do that. But we also have interviews with CC Young and referee Youngblood that are in the vault that you guys can go watch. But we'll let Lodi sign off. He's got training tonight. But when we come back, we'll have Markus Hernandez from Four Sides of the Ring and Jason Sitek to talk about our experience at AEW Revolution next on Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. Welcome back to the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast on Tobacco Road Sports Radio and TobaccoRoadSportsRadio.com as part of your Wrestling Wednesday lineup. A very big special thank you to Lodi, who just graced us with his presence right here on Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast. We'll have more info on the Weight Room Revival next week as well. But right now, we got to talk about the big event that happened this past Sunday night in the Greensboro Coliseum. So wanted to bring in a couple other guys who got to experience it live. One of them is one of my good friends, also one of my dad's good friends. My dad's gotten about 4 shouts this podcast. We got Mr. Jason Sitek. Jason, how are you doing? How was the show?
Doing well. Still processing everything that happened. I've tried not to watch a whole lot of other review stuff and kind of just let it like marinate in, but had a great time. So spoiler, like this is going to be a pretty glowing review of AEW Revolution from yours truly.
Well, Jason just gave that prediction, not a spoiler. And then a couple weeks ago, I've actually been on a couple episodes of 3 Count Trivia, hosted by Four Sides of the Ring. And one of their guys is another North Carolina native. We have Markus here from Four Sides of the Ring. Markus, first of all, thank you for allowing myself and Mike Mealy from Mouthing Off with Mike to hop on your show. We will be coming back for those titles. Very, very sure. But how are you doing? What did you think about AEW Revolution?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. Thank you for having me. But just like Jason, still processing it, still trying to figure out if what I saw was real from some of those matches. But just hats off to all of AEW and Tony Khan, and excited to talk about it because just like Jason as well, been holding it in, waiting for this exact moment.
Yeah, and also we're going to be showing some fan footage, fan pictures as well on the podcast. So if you submitted one, thank you. I'll have your names scrolling across the screen, and hopefully I didn't miss anybody. If I missed you, reach out to me, get a hold of my ear. But we got to talk about the big thing. AEW Revolution, incredible experience live. It was just phenomenal, but it was all centered around Sting's final match. Sting and Darby Allin retained the AEW tag team titles against the Young Bucks, giving Sting a perfect, unblemished 29-0 record, retiring. They'll be vacating the titles, and there will be a tournament afterwards. But Markus, I'll start with you. What did you think about Sting's final match? Was this the proper way to send him off? And do you like that he won instead of losing the tag titles on Sunday?
Oh yeah, I think it's the best way to send Sting off. Just a phenomenal way to just have his last career at AEW. The 29-0 was perfect. And I mean, why not win with the titles? It gives Tony Khan to do his most favorite thing in the world, and that's announce a tournament. So yeah, I think what he did for Sting was amazing and was perfect.
Yeah. What about you, Jason? Did you like that Sting didn't go out on his back as, you know, some of the older wrestlers have like grown accustomed to?
It depends who I think it kind of depends who the person is wrestling. So like, you know, a lot of times you'll see like a friend versus friend, or maybe like a famous rival or things like that. You know, I think about like Kevin Steen, now Owens, his last match in Ring of Honor. You know, he lost that match, but it ended up being like a big send off. I think you had to have him win here. Like there was so much and really credit to the Young Bucks, who are the greatest tag team arguably of all time at this point. They just made themselves so hateable that the idea of, you know, them going over was, you didn't even really want to think about it, because you wanted Search and Destroy or Seek and Destroy to hit as like the winning music as soon as Sting won. So I like it. You know, we'll get into other topics. There were other matches where a group didn't win, and I felt like they definitely should have, given the venue. But as far as for Sting, like I had no problem with it. And I mean, we probably witnessed, certainly this is on the Mount Rushmore of retirement matches, and probably the top 1 or 2, because it was just bonkers from start to finish.
So if we wanted to give an early ranking to the best send-off matches of all time, Jason, do you think it's 1 or 2? If you had to solidify one? I
mean, you know, you're so close to it, and especially being there live, you're always going to be super biased and be like, no, this is absolutely the best. I mean, from a fans going home happy standpoint, it's hard to see how anything really beats this one. Just from Sting's sons coming out, you know, and I'll fully admit, like I got totally, you know, marked by his son coming out as like USA Sting at first. I thought it was him because it looked just like him. And like in your head, you're like, it would be kind of cool if Surfer Sting came out and did this. So I think him having his family there, all the different folks who were in the audience. I did hear that Luger was there, even though he was never really shown on camera. So, you know, Steamboat, Flair, everybody else. I mean, I think this one's probably at the top. Especially because this was a retirement match where it wasn't like Sting's body wasn't failing him. Like, you weren't worried about him just like kind of going through the motions. Like, he wrestled a match for his last match, which is a testament to him and how he's kind of taken care of himself and, you know, kept a lot of parts of his body much cleaner than, say, other people in the ring with him at different times. So, you know, I don't think I would change really anything about it. I think it's just so great.
Marcus, do you believe this? Because I'm trying not to be biased because I was there in person. I know you were there in person too. This felt like the perfect way to send him off. And if we look back on it, probably is the best way anyone's ever been sent off into retirement.
Oh, 100%. I mean, just super respectful. I mean, allowing his sons to be there. The beginning of the match, let's be real, was a handicap match. You know, shouts out to the Young Bucks for just allowing that to even happen. And it had to be the Young Bucks. If any tag team was going to allow this to happen, not a squash match per se, but it was going to be the Young Bucks because it doesn't hurt them. They're still going to be the Young Bucks, and they're still going to be the good tag team that they are. And just what a way to send off Sting. He did all the spots were crazy, going through glass. I was like, come on, Sting. But that's awesome. The table, just doing all these crazy things, really carrying the match also while, you know, what happened with Darby Allin. So just, I think he had fun. He had way more fun than he did at that send off for the E. So, you know, just it looked great. It was just a really great match. It was super entertaining. And for someone at his age to go at that pace, knowing that guys really can't do it at that age when they try to, is just, you know, astonishing and amazing. So shouts out to Sting, man. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and sorry to jump in. Like, it's amazing that this is the same person who did that Night of Champions match against Seth Rollins, 9 years ago, where his like it looked like he was not even going to make it through the match. I mean, when he came back in 2021 to AEW, I confess I was like, I hope this doesn't go. And could not have been more wrong. Could not have been happier to be more wrong. Like Sting was a legitimate reason to turn on Dynamite every Wednesday because you wanted to see what he is, and the Darby pairing was absolutely perfect. Like, couldn't have done better as a tag team partner.
Yeah, shout out to Tony Khan, who from the get-go was like, hey, I think I see a lot of Darby Allin in you. Would you be willing to be on the road with him? Because I feel like that's also matured Darby Allin the last 3 years, being paired with the icon Sting. It was a sold out place in Greensboro Coliseum. And this was the best way to send him off. Night Champions 2015. I know it was a horrific accident, but that wasn't the way you end Sting's career. That picture right there on the screen sent into us by our fans on Drop the Mic. If you're watching on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel, that is the way to send the Stinger off. And now the question is, what happens to Darby Allin? What is next for Darby Allin? Marcus, do you have any ideas what they could do next with Allin?
Yeah, I want to see a climb. I want to see the dog and Darby again, and I want to see him chase big gold. It's going to take some time, and you know, he's the workhorse. We all know that. So I just want to really see him, you know, chase and be more focused on this solo career. And, you know, when he gets the gold, and hopefully Tony Khan make it at Greensboro, because I think we would love to see that and have Sting come out and really congratulate him. That'd be a beautiful moment.
It would, I think my internet cut me out there. But I did want to pull up a video real quick, submitted by one of our panelists today, Jason Sitek, and this is as crazy as Darby Allin gets right here. I mean, this is wild right here. The running joke is if that was real glass or not.
Yeah,
definitely look like the after
Jack Perry is just stewing over in a corner,
right?
You know, so I saw them, you know, and this was, to me, this was the funniest part of the match, is the build up to that moment, because, you know, during that match is like, you know, it's Sting versus the Young Bucks 1-on-2 at that point. And his sons and Darby are just over in the corner intentionally not helping him. They're just like, we see that you're getting, you know, your face pushed in, Stinger. Just wait like 5 minutes. We have to get this set up first, and then we'll come help you. Like, so it was sort of like a funny moment in terms of like suspension of disbelief. But, you know, I saw the chairs and I was like, okay. I saw the ladder. I was like, okay. Saw the tables. You're like, oh, cool. And then they brought out the glass, and I in my chair just said, no, like I was like, this is going to be insane. So I love that they did the first, like, break the bat on the first pain. Totally forgot about the pain that Sting later went through, which is my favorite production move in all of wrestling, is to set something up and to make you forget about it until someone goes through it. And they're like, I forgot that was there. This is amazing. But obviously when you saw it building to, I mean, had to have been 12 feet at least ladder. You know, it was 2 Darbys tall, and he's got to be at least 5 feet, I assume. So, yeah, I mean, that was the craziest spot I've ever seen. Probably will ever see. It's the craziest spot I hope I ever see, because I don't want to know what would be crazier to see it in person.
His back was torn up. Thankfully, he got to the media scrum to let everybody know he's okay, and he'll be leaving AEW to climb Mount Everest at the end of the month. He's still under contract, obviously, but excited to see, you know, what's in store for him. But I'm more excited to talk about this match, because if you guys even think you know the direction of where I'm going, this is match of the night. This tried to steal the show away from Sting, but it was that dang good. Had Will Ospreay versus Konosuke Takeshita, and this was a phenomenal match. Marcus, a lot of people are throwing match of the year candidate around. Are you in that group of people, or what are your thoughts?
Biased because I was there live, but man, oh man, it's got to be there. It's still early in the year, so it's got to be up there for match of the year. But I said it earlier, these two guys are the future of AEW, and this wasn't even for a title. So just imagine what a caliber of match would be for the title between these two guys. So Tony Khan, once again, man, thank you for bringing Will Ospreay and Konosuke Takeshita to the States, because us fans get to witness this, and it was magical, and this is something I won't ever forget.
Man, Jason, I know you couldn't wait to talk about this match. Marcus said, you know, there was a bias in that arena. That was the best atmosphere I think I've ever felt live in person.
Oh,
what was your takeaways?
I mean, this crowd was ready for, and you could see it when it came on the screen. People were stoked this match was next. Full transparency, I forgot this match was on the card until like 2 matches beforehand, because I'd been so focused on everything. And I was like, oh, we got like 2 more matches. And I was like, oh no, there's still the Ospreay match. I am not the biggest fan of Will Ospreay, which is, so what I'm not saying is, I'm not saying he's not more talented than almost everybody else in the world. Like, unmatched athleticism. I'm just not like, the character is not my favorite. I think it comes off a little corny sometimes, but he backs it up athletically. To me, the Will Ospreay did not do anything that I didn't expect him to do. Konosuke Takeshita was the star of this match and made sure that Will Ospreay came out as the most white hot, like, babyface to be the future champion at some later pay-per-view. I mean, he was so good, even though he, tried to murder him in that corner spot that dragged down his back. I mean, that was a crazy spot. But Takeshita has just grown and grown and grown on me throughout the time. So I think, I agree. Like, those two guys coming together, which is awesome. They obviously knew how to wrestle. Very different Will Ospreay than, we've seen from when he was a junior and now coming into a heavyweight, which is, I think, the right move, is to have him be a little bit more of like a really athletic, almost Haas, but not. Like, for him to be able to do what he does at that size is pretty amazing. I admit, I think the hidden blade doesn't do it for me as a finisher, because it just sort of looks like you're bumping a guy in the back of the head. And it's like, okay, like, how many times have I hit my head on the top of my car getting out and I'm fine? Like, it, like,
I don't know.
I get angry and then I finish getting the groceries in. So from like I'm not crazy about the finisher. He's unbelievable. He's going to name his price to keep him, because obviously any company wants to take him off wherever he is. But I loved watching Konosuke Takeshita just get over as, like, you could tell everyone in the building wanted to cheer Will Ospreay, but they didn't necessarily want to boo Takeshita because he was so good in that just sort of like brutal killer. I'm gonna everything you throw at me, I'm gonna have something else as well. So credit to both of them. I mean, probably was the best wrestling match of the night. No offense, Bryan Danielson.
I mean, and again, like, looking at this card top to bottom, it was incredible. And I think it says something that they feel comfortable with Takeshita in those big moments. Ospreay's first match as a full-time member of the AEW roster against Takeshita. Takeshita making Chris Jericho tap out to the walls of Jericho, whatever we're calling it, Lion Tamer now. And then, of course, Takeshita against Omega. Like, he's being put in these big moments against these big names, and he's delivering, which is tremendous for him. Now, usually with pay-per-views, we do see a surprise return. I was hoping for maybe one or two other names to happen, but I didn't expect Kyle O'Reilly to show up right after Roderick Strong beat Orange Cassidy for the International Championship, and that was your big one.
I have a little historical context there. The last time they were in Greensboro, Adam Cole wrestled Orange Cassidy in Greensboro. Adam Cole also won, and Kyle O'Reilly debuted. So there's a lot of history for Kyle O'Reilly in AEW in Greensboro. That is both the place where he returned and debuted, which was also main evented by a great Sting match and Darby Allin. That was FTR and MJF versus Punk, Darby, and Sting right before Christmas in 2021.
Wow, Jason with the facts right here, showing one of our.
I only remember because I was there too. Otherwise, I probably wouldn't have.
Hey, you got your sources, and your sources is yourself, as well as our sources for the fan photos on the Tobacco Road Sports Radio YouTube feed. Marcus, are you satisfied with seeing the return of Kyle O'Reilly in this spot? Did you expect it? What were your thoughts?
No, honestly surprised. But when you saw him come into the ring, you automatically knew who it was. But really excited for him to be back. Really, I'm a huge Kyle O'Reilly fan, so really excited for him to be back. Big fan of his in-ring work. I just want to see how this plays out now. Is Bobby Fish going to be a part of it? You know, where are we going with the Adam Cole? Is Adam Cole going to be torn away? I did say, though, I wished the Undisputed Kingdom didn't win anything, because I thought that'd be the perfect story to tell. Everything they did to MJF would have been all for nothing because they got nothing out of it. But, shouts out to Roderick Strong for getting his first gold. That was really cool to see, too.
It was cool. Orange Cassidy has had an incredible run as international champion. Fans still dress up as Orange Cassidy in the laziest superstar attire that you can cosplay as at a wrestling show. And that kind of fits because Orange Cassidy himself comes across as lazy, but once he really got into that feud with Chris Jericho a few years ago, that's where you started to see a more aggressive approach for Orange Cassidy, which led to a really good run as international champion. I don't know. I wanted to see Kazuchika Okada show up. I feel like that's the one name that you could have debuted here. Of course, I think Mercedes Moné is going to show up in Boston, and they've alluded to that already. But I'll just say this: if Okada shows up tonight on Dynamite and didn't show up in Greensboro, I'm going to be upset. Are you guys sharing the same feeling? I mean, Jason, I know you're a big Okada fan.
I'm a huge Okada fan. I probably would have left the building. Like, I would have been so euphoric, like, just because it would have been so unexpected. I expect him to debut at Big Business. Like, it's just, they've seemed to like really allude to that, along with, you know, Mercedes as well. I do want to circle back, like, because I'm a huge Roderick Strong fan, and I think it was, I sort of expected him to win, especially after Wardlow won his match for the Scramble. You know, going back to what Marcus said, it would be funny if they lost everything. But as soon as Wardlow won, I was like, okay, they are going to start building that story, as far as like they're slowly going to get everything, because, you know, you think back to when Undisputed debuted and they said Wardlow's going to win the world title and then he's going to lay down for Adam Cole. And so it's like, they're obviously, you know, I'm a simple man. I just want people to do what they say. I want good guys versus bad guys. And it seems like there's some sort of plan for Wardlow there, but Roderick Strong is just a wrestler's wrestler. And I loved the working of the back, you know, building eventually to the end of Heartache. Like, it's just such a cool, he's so much fun to watch wrestle anybody. So, and I mean, and he's wrestled all the big names in NJPW when he was in Ring of Honor. I mean, so he can have a good match with anyone. And I'm excited that his comeback has kind of been completed as well. So that was a really cool moment. And I share Marcus's excitement. I'm a huge Kyle O'Reilly fan ever since, was it Best of Super Juniors in 2014 or whenever he wrestled Kushida in the finals. And that was just one of the best matches that year. So,
yeah, super excited to see what O'Reilly does with the Undisputed Kingdom. I'm sure we're going to be talking about that for weeks to come. Usually you're watching on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. Usually an hour is our pastime, but I did get word from producer. We can be allotted a few extra minutes just because of how great the interview with Lodi was, how great AEW Revolution was in Greensboro, in the Triad area. Your home for Tobacco Road Sports Radio. So I did want to make sure I wanted to touch on this. I wanted to touch on this match. Samoa Joe walking in as AEW World Champion against Swerve Strickland and Hangman Page. I'm super shocked that Hangman Page got booed in the Carolinas. He's a Virginia guy, but man, the fans have taken really well to Swerve Strickland, and they were even cheering for Samoa Joe, which I was personally surprised at. Marcus, I want to know which side of the fence you were on. Were you cheering for Hangman, Swerve, or Joe? And are you okay with Samoa Joe retaining the championship this past Sunday?
First and foremost, I'm a wrestling fan, so I was cheering for all three of them. All three of them are phenomenal guys. So
That's
at the same time,
you just want the teams to have fun, man. You just want the teams
to have fun. But
Gosh.
I was a big advocate, man, on really doing the right thing and giving it to Swerve. I'm not mad Samoa Joe won because Hangman did say it. You know, the one thing I'm gonna make sure is that you don't walk out champion, and he did do that. So did he tap out on purpose? That's the question now. You know, did he do it in spite of Swerve? Because we saw it. Swerve had the win right there. He had the win. So I'm really interested what's going to happen on Wednesday. So we just got to get to that. But yeah, really excited for Joe. I think he deserves everything in wrestling. He didn't really have the best of runs because of injuries, and I'm not going to say that's because of somebody, you know, another company's fault. But you know, he deserves it, and he's a legendary wrestler, done great things. So if he wasn't champion, I think him and Sting would have been a right send-off match for Sting too. But this was a great triple threat match.
And this was Samoa Joe's first world title run since way back in TNA. I mean, you can count the NXT title. You can make the debate on that. But Jason, I know you threw up the Joe hands earlier. Please tell me you weren't rooting for.
I will never cheer against Samoa Joe. I mean, he is going back to what I said about Roddy earlier. I mean, he's your favorite wrestler's favorite wrestler. And you could just tell how good he is in the ring. with those other guys from, you know, the walkaway spot early on. I mean, you recognize those guys who are so good at what they do. And I'm ecstatic that he got this run that he's had. I expected it to go to Swerve. I think I would have even argued that it was probably the right time to do it. But I love the boost of confidence to say Samoa Joe is not an old guy / transitional champion. He is still someone that you can build a company on. He can obviously wrestle anyone. He can have a good match with anyone. I didn't even think about it, you know, Marcus saying, you know, Sting would have been a pretty cool final match against Samoa Joe, given, you know, the longtime TNA connection and that run as well. Yeah, I was happy. I was happy with it. I don't think the crowd, I hate to say it because, you know, Hangman is great in that sort of like character, like chase role. I don't think the crowd would not have loved him getting the chance. It was either Joe or Swerve, I felt like. But I mean, Swerve Strickland is over in a way that I did not expect. I mean, but ever since the Texas death match, like, it seems like he's kicked it into a new gear. He's found some new life, and I'm excited for him. I think eventually he does take it at some point. But it'll be, you know, it'll be fun to see, fun to tune into Dynamite and see what they have him say. At some point, you know, maybe you'll get a singles bout between both of them and Joe, and then, you know, maybe Swerve takes it that way. Who knows?
Yeah. Marcus brought up a really good point about, you know, Hangman probably intentionally tapping out just to cost Swerve the championship. We'll have to find out more tonight on Dynamite, but before I let you guys go, I know we didn't touch on the TNT title match. We didn't touch on the tag team match. We didn't touch on the women's match. There's just so much content here, and I want to be respectful of y'all's time. I want to be respectful of the people watching on Drop the Mic, on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. A lot of big stuff happening. So I wanted to give you guys a spotlight. I wanted to give you guys a chance. If there was anything else that stuck out to you, whether it was something really, really good from Revolution, or if it was something like, man, they should have done this better. What is that moment? What is that thing for you? Marcus, I'll start out with you. What's your final spotlight for Drop the Mic this week?
Tony Khan, keep doing what you're doing. Your pay-per-views are amazing. I'm excited. I'm not even excited. I'm glad that I was able to witness that live, and I will definitely be going to more. So I hope that you show more love to the Greensboro Coliseum. The one thing I will say, just have more merch. Please have more merch. Please have more merch. But great job. Great show.
Great job. I think it was incredible. I went to the Sting merch line. They didn't have like the half and half face paint I talked about on last week's show. That was kind of depressing. But Jason, what's your final spotlight of the night?
First one is that we didn't talk about it, but Bryan Danielson might be the greatest living professional wrestler. I mean, that his match with Eddie Kingston was so good. Credit to Eddie Kingston, because 10 years ago, if you had said Eddie Kingston would be a like pay-per-view singles match star on a major television network, I don't know that anyone would have believed you. He was tremendous. Bryan Danielson is Bryan Danielson. I mean, he's one of the greatest, and I'm so glad that I got to see him on this last run, healthy, you know, fully going for it, giving everything. The only thing I would have changed about this show, and this is my one gripe, is I hate it when hometown guys lose in their hometowns. I would have had FTR go over, because I don't think it would have affected anything in the grand scheme of things. And it would have made, you know, a white hot crowd would have gone even white hotter. Match was tremendous. Moxley's a sicko. Claudio is so insane. I wish they'd gone over, but that's just sort of like an old school wrestling trope in there. The match was obviously great. But you know, those are two that I'm going to go back and watch as soon as I can get a replay loaded up.
I am totally on board with Jason on this one. Why are you in North Carolina, Greensboro? Yes, it's for Sting's final match, but you have FTR go out and have a great match against Claudio Castagnoli and Jon Moxley, but you have them lose? Like, what's up with that? Sick attire, by the way. Sick kudos to Moxley and Claudio.
Gear ruled.
Yeah.
That's
one of those things make wrestling less predictable, right? Don't let the home guys win.
Okay, but like FTR, and I was wearing an FTR shirt at this event. Like, they are North Carolina guys.
It's FTR and the Bucks and Claudio and Moxley. They really don't need any wins. Like at this point, their credibility and toughness is there. I think either of those teams can kind of eat a loss and no one will really think about it. And I know no one would have enjoyed the show. People only would have enjoyed it more had they won, because it would have been like one more feel-good moment. Obviously, the match was tremendous and was outstanding either way. So no one, it didn't bother me too much, but like, have them go over, guys. Like, that would have been pretty cool to cheer. I've never seen FTR win in person. The last time I saw them in person was 2015 when they were in NXT. They wrestled a house show in Charlotte against American Alpha. Remember way back when? And they had just lost the tag belts to them. So I've never seen them win in North Carolina, which now that I think about it bothers me even more.
Did you go to the CMFTR versus House of Black show, Collision? I did not, no. Okay, they won that. They won that match.
Okay.
Man, yeah, we got to get Jason to a show that FTR would win. They should have won this past Sunday in Greensboro.
Technically, I saw them win. If you no, they lost
audience.
I was gonna say no. I thought I saw them win with Punk on Dynamite, but they were on MGF's team that match. So never mind.
Oh yeah, was this the one where Punk teamed with Darby and Sting?
Yeah, yeah.
Man, yeah, I'm a big FTR guy. Wish they had won. Hardy Boys didn't show up. I'm not a big Hardy Boys guy, so I wasn't too disappointed about that. I've seen them too many times, but one guy I did want to see, and he should have wrestled this man. Why is Adam Copeland, who now lives in Asheville, North Carolina, not wrestling Christian Cage for the TNT title on pay-per-view, and we have to open the show with Dan Garcia? I got those tickets, and I was super excited to see Sting, but the second most excited I was, and it was actually really close, was seeing Adam Copeland for the first time live. And come on, I don't know if there's a legitimate injury or if he requested time off or whatever the deal was, but come on, we needed that payoff. I hope we get it sometime soon down the road, but we got to get out of here. First of all, a big thank you to our guest this week, Markus. Go follow him. He has his socials here on the screen. Four Sides of the Ring podcast, super great. I was on a couple episodes. Like I said, the main event mics will be back in the main event and go get those sweet titles once ever the champions get decided and they don't want to run away from us. Special thanks to Jason Sitek for hopping back on Drop the Mic this week. It's been a too sweet event. Thank you for the fans who submitted pictures from AEW Revolution. I had a lot of people attend. Wish I could have gotten you all on the show. But go follow Markus. Also, join myself at the Weight Room Revival a week from tomorrow in Matthews, North Carolina, March 14th at your Flex Appeal. There's going to be special guest speakers, Peter Bilt, Pastor Andy McDaniel. Both of them have wrestled in the indie circuit, and it's hosted by former WCW superstar Lodi, who was on the show earlier today. Thank you so much for hopping on. Subscribe to the Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel for more Drop the Mic episodes this year. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and our new TikTok, as well as we're coming back. Outta Pocket returns bigger and better than ever. It's going to be 4 days a week during your lunchtime, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday, 12:30 p.m. Eastern. It's going to return this Monday. It's going to be a roundtable sports discussion. I'm super excited to be on that. So get ready to get Outta Pocket here on Tobacco Road Sports Radio's YouTube channel. And most of all, thank you guys so much for spending your Wednesday with us on Drop the Mic. Hope you enjoyed these extra minutes here, and we will see you guys next week on the Drop the Mic Wrestling Podcast.